Rich, it's all good, man. Rich Ward, the Duke of Metal. Welcome to On the Road to Rock. You're
Yeah.
following Ted Nugent here, so I needed some time to sort of decompress from that anyway. So this
How
is
was that?
perfect. It was
How was it?
awesome. I
Yeah, I
mean,
love
you
Ted.
know, I love Ted. Like, you don't really have to do much yourself as the interviewer. You just sort of like say a president's name and let it go. I mean, it's all good. Hey,
Yeah.
you just
You,
let
you
Ted do
hit
his thing.
you hit the starter's pistol and then you're off. Yes.
Rich, I'm so glad to have you, man, because ever since I've become, knowledgeable about Guardians of the Jukebox, everything you guys do, man, it just lights me up in every positive way imaginable. In fact, this week I'm going to see Lionel Richie this week. So like I know you guys do a lot of Lionel, and so it's
We
perfect.
do. I'm a huge Lionel fan. My first slow dance ever with a girl in eighth grade was to Hello by Lionel Richie. So it will always go down in the record books as Lionel was the gateway to my, you know, some of the greatest adolescent memories I have.
That is magical. And that's what it's crazy because, like, Rich, I'm such a metal guy. I would just die on a hill for Maiden, Priest, Kiss, Motley, all of them. But it's weird in this, and today, like, as I've seen so many bands live, and there's still luckily so many you can see. But when it comes to like going to a tribute show or a cover band, it's like, I love Motley Crue. It's like, do I really need to go to a Motley tribute show? When I go out, I want to hear songs like what you guys play. That's maybe it's just my age. I'm 40 now, and I love to hear. I'm an 80s pop just aficionado. I mean, from Kenny Loggins, you guys do it all to Aha. You guys really run the gambit. So why is that? Why have I softened in my age? Are you the same way? Like, hey, I could play like in a Maiden tribute band, or like I could play all these fun songs from the 80s that we love to dance to.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to people always kind of say, oh, Lionel Richie, Madonna, those are guilty pleasures, but they're not really. I mean, everybody I
Right.
know who grew up on metal also liked the best Michael Jackson songs, like the best Prince songs. You know, I think there's something, um, even when hip hop songs come on, and hip hop's not necessarily my favorite style of music, but the best of the hip hop genre I love. The best of the country rock genre I love. There's something about great songwriters and great songs and great performers, great artists, and I think most metalheads gravitate towards, hey, if it's good, it's good. I think that's the way we are with metal too. If it's a crappy metal song, we don't like that one either. And I think the cliche, the cream rises to the top, is there for a reason. And I think a great song is a great song. And I think metalheads are, attracted to metal for lots of reasons. But also, we look over there at Lionel Richie, and he has an incredible lead guitar player live, the same way that Pink brings on an incredible lead guitar player. Michael Jackson was one of the first people to bring in Slash and Eddie Van Halen and Jennifer Batten. And like these pop artists intuitively knew that there was an energy that rock guitar players brought to pop music. And I think Michael may have been the first one with Beat It to really say, we're going to do this. And then all of a sudden, Lionel Richie's bringing Steve Lukather from Toto in to track solos. And then we're off to the races. So for a lot of us metal guitar players, we like these pop songs because on the session, we're the finest rock guitar players in the scene. We're actually cutting the tracks. And I think that's part of my love for it too. I mean, you look at bands like Survivor and Night Ranger, and even though they were kind of pop rock bands, but they had hard rock guitar players. And even though Sister Christian was a big ballad that was played on the radio, that our parents loved it, the guitar solos were incredible, and there was always that big hook for us as metal guys and
How
gals.
difficult? How right? And how difficult is it for you guys to sort of formulate a set list because you cover a lot of ground? There are so many songs that are just so infectious that people love. And it's almost like you can do no wrong, but you guys do. I mean, you guys cover about what, like 20, 25 songs a night?
32. Yeah, we have
32.
60 Yeah, we have 60 songs in the set list. We play a 2 hour and 15-minute set, no break. Because I said I want to play a concert set. When you go to see the Rolling Stones, you're going to see close to 30 songs because they have too many songs not to play. And we do everything from True by Spandau Ballet and Forever Young by um, uh, Rod Stewart, and we do Take My Breath Away by Berlin. We we'll play the ballads and then we'll go all the way to the other side of it and play Danger Zone. And we don't do any heavy metal because there's lots of heavy metal tribute bands out there that do
Right.
it really well. We we keep things in this nice and tidy thing where it was all the songs that when I came home in ninth grade and turned on MTV, these were the songs that were on MTV. It was Journey and Loverboy and Foreigner. Those were the big rock bands that were on. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, when Headbangers Ball came on, we were lucky to have Megadeth and Pantera, and you were getting more Metallica and you were getting more of the heavy bands. But in the peak of the day, about as hard rock as you were going to get was the Round and Round,
Sure.
video from Rat. And again, there's a lot of bands that play Crew and Rat and Def Leppard, and they do that great. I think our secret weapon is we just stay with the biggest hits by the biggest acts, and the ones that are do more specialty stuff, like I said, the heavy stuff, or they do more of the kind of R&B funk stuff. And we do Lionel Richie, we do Billy Ocean, we do one Bobby Brown song. We do make sure to cover a little bit of everything because if you go out and play an 80s tribute and you don't play Living on a Prayer, pitchforks and torches are coming out. So we do that every night because it's part of it. But you've got groups like the Eurythmics, you got groups like the Bangles and
Yeah.
Madonna, and we're really blessed to have one of the best female singers and artists in the business. And I don't mean in the tribute band business; I mean in the business. And the male singer that I've got in the group is a guy that I've known since the mid '90s. Actually, God, dating myself, the late '80s in the Atlanta music
Wow.
scene. We grew up together playing in bands around Atlanta, um, and then you know you you when you're putting together a band like this, you have to find people who are talented enough to cover the bases. You know, who can do everything from Lionel Richie to Toto and to Bon Jovi and in between.
Yeah, and you hit a lot there, and I'm so much in agreement about and these songs have become such a fabric of our lives, and they're so timeless, and it's like, in this day and age, I mean, there was a time when, tribute bands, cover bands, that was kind of a dirty word in rock. You're like, the movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, it's like, "Oh, yeah, we're a tribute band, we're not a cover band," and now, because so many of these bands have retired, unfortunately have passed away in a lot of cases, that this music, it's like we've got to keep it alive. And this, in a night that you can go hear 32 of your favorite songs that were on all your mixtapes in your 1976, like Ford Maverick growing up, like that's a pretty powerful
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason I hated the idea of tribute and cover bands too, because when I was coming up in my original band, Stuck Mojo in Atlanta, there were a
Right.
lot of like cover bands, and I would always look down my nose at them. It's like, why don't you play your own music? And I think part of the reason was is that most of the bands that were around the Atlanta scene that I was familiar with were either doing the big cosplay thing where it was dress up and there was costumes and stuff, and it seemed a bit silly to me. And then the other part of it was like your uncle's cover band that played Foghat, and they just drank a 12 pack of beer each, and it wasn't played well. It just wasn't there wasn't a lot of rehearsal and preparation. So you had like two bad case scenarios in my opinion, which was that when I saw Bon Jovi, I thought I was seeing one of the greatest bands in the world when they opened up for the Scorpions in 1984, the Worldwide Live Tour. And I always thought Bon Jovi's an amazing band. I don't want to dress up and try to be Bon Jovi because you'll never be as good as John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora. They're two of the greatest in the world at doing what they do. All I can do is be Rich Ward, and I can show honor and respect to those songs by playing them the way they wrote them. I don't do my own versions of them. I play the songs, and the Guardians of the Jukebox play those songs the way you remember them. Now, I kick them with the steel toe boot because I'm a rock guitar player, so I'm going to add a little more weight to the
Yeah.
guitar sound because that's the way that I play. So I put my own thumbprint on them without changing the song, without trying to rewrite them and reimagine these songs. And I think that's the secret to our band is that people don't come to us and think that they're seeing. In other words, I don't want to be the joke. I don't want people going, ha ha ha, that's really funny. I want to be entertaining and I want people to have a great time. But I don't want to be a funny band. I want to take these songs very seriously. I'm a serious musician, and these are very serious songs, and I want to play them like I own them. And not only does it show reverence to the audience who comes to see you and pays to see you
Mhm.
play, but it's also a reverence to the artist who wrote them in the first place.
Very well put. And you guys have a new single out actually, which is Flashdance. What a feeling. Which is funny because my good friend Eric Martin from Mr. Big, he and Tobias Sammet from Avantasia, I think, did a cover of it, but it's like a metal cover of What a Feeling, which is cool. This is again very like more straightforward cover of the song as we remember. And you have this great female vocalist too. Talk about her, the song, and kind of why of all the songs you do, you wanted to do that one as a single.
Well, when we started off the band, it was five goofy rock dudes. Um, and we started off during the big pandemic period where all bands were basically landlocked at home. Fozzy, my band that I've been touring with for the last 25 years, making records with, was not able to tour, and I just looked at it as this opportunity. Okay, I'm at home. I got to get busy, and we had started the Guardians of the Jukebox, but it was kind of a fun band that we played two or three shows a year with. And I decided this was a sign from the universe that I have time to really invest myself into this band. And we put all of our time into it. And it started to become this passion project. It wasn't like, wow, this is fun. I was actually getting something out of it. I was like emotionally attached to these performances and these shows and seeing people really in the audience. I mean, without being too dramatic, I mean, you see people in the crowd die, like tears weeping out of their eyes, remembering these moments from high school prom and things, and so it started meaning something to me more than just the exercise of playing these songs. Um, and then as we started to take it to the next level and to the next level and to the next level, and that's when I readjusted my thought of what this band is and what this band could be. We had some membership changes, and I was looking for my Annie Lennox, my Madonna. We needed to find that female vocalist, keyboardist that could complete us as a band. Um, and we looked, and I spoke to lots of women around the Southeast, matter of fact, all over the country. And ironically, our manager, Randy Sod, brought to my attention this lady who was working here in Atlanta doing synth rock 80s style music. Her name is Saoirse, and I met with her at the studio that we were recording in and had a great conversation with her and we just clicked and clicked and clicked. And which the reason she's so special is because she is the exact opposite of what I am. I am this incredibly spontaneous, emotionally driven. I came up living in a van, driving from city to city, playing in a heavy metal band. She has a college degree and is smart and understands music and takes dance, like takes
She's
opera
actually
vocal
smart.
lessons. Yes, she's
That's
brilliant,
funny.
and she is a great yin to my yang. Um, and the great thing is that the male lead vocalist, is this Peter Gabriel Sting type artist who is even different from she or myself.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, we have three completely unique, definable characters in this band fronting it. I consider myself the MC or kind of like the hype guy of the band. I talk to the band in between the crowd, to the crowd in between the songs. But they are the voices of the band. I sing My Prerogative by Bobby Brown. I sing a couple of things here and there. And I do more what I call vocalist songs, not singer songs, because I'll never be what they are, which is these incredible voices. I'm more of I call myself the rodeo clown of the band. When you bring the rodeo clown out to chase the bull for it's a different energy to break up the show. But we have a great band. I've got Sean Delson playing bass, who was in Stuck Mojo for a while, was in
Yep.
Fozzy for a while. So I've toured the planet with him. Our drummer is the drummer from Fozzy, Grant Brooks, who has toured the world. And I've got pros, and that makes a big difference when you have seasoned pros that have toured and made records. There's a different understanding, other than just the live experience. You know how to communicate with an audience. You know all the important things to do, and I feel like that's why this band's popularity is really, it's odd for me to say it, but Saturday night we drew a 10,000 person crowd here in Woodstock, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. For a tribute band to draw 10,000 people, Night Ranger played the same venue a month earlier and did 8,200 people. So a
Wow.
band who is a multi-platinum band to not be able to draw the same size crowd that we are, and we're not as good as Night Ranger. They're one of the greatest bands of all time. But what it is, it's an indication that we're connecting with an audience.
Yes.
That is all that we're supposed to do. The reason Stuck Mojo was a successful band in the 90s is not because we could play guitar or rap or better than anyone else. It was we connected with an audience. It's the reason why Fozzy is so successful with Jericho at
Hmm.
the helm. Chris Jericho, one of the greatest performers of my age group. I mean, I was watching him on TV when I was in my 20s. No wonder he can stand in front of a crowd and connect. These are the things, investing in your audience and being able to communicate with an audience and build a relationship with them. That's our job.
Well, and you guys are going to be out this summer, several dates coming up here June 22nd, the Dixie Tavern in Marietta. You're going to be in Peachtree Corners, Georgia, a week after that, and a couple more dates down. Oh my God, you're going to be at Club LA in Destin. And I don't know if Fozzy's ever played there, but that is an awesome venue. Club LA is such a throwback. It's a great place there in Destin. Going to love that. And
It
then you
is
guys go to
great. I love it.
the UK, to London and Manchester for a couple dates, man. You talk about like really making the rounds here this summer, before the Fozzy tour kicks off here this fall. I mean, this is great. And obviously the visibility's growing, the band's perception and the videos, people are seeing what the band is. You can see a whole video on YouTube of an entire show right now. So like you can really get the vibe of what this is. So a big busy summer for you guys. And like you said, you take it very seriously, and it's going to be, I'm trying to get to one of these shows. I'm going to try to get to that Club LA show. I got to make it to that
Where do
one,
you
man. You
live?
guys,
Where do you
I'm
live?
in Missouri. I'm in Kansas City. So I travel
Oh,
all summer.
nice.
That's what I do. That's why we call this On the Road to Rock. I'm on the road all summer long. I've got Lionel Richie this week, the Beach Boys at the end of the week. I'm going to be making my rounds here this summer. So I'm hoping
Wow, man, you get
to
some
get
big,
out
big
there.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of dates. I mean, this is great. I mean, hopefully you can squeeze in some more. I think you just announced another one maybe for July 6th in Canton, Georgia, right?
Yeah, that's the way that a lot of tribute bands, and it's the same with you look at a band like Night Ranger and a lot of these kind of John Waite, even Pat Benatar, some of the bands who aren't doing Journey and Foreigner and Styx level arena amphitheater touring are doing these smaller amphitheaters in the suburbs of towns as opposed to doing the
Mm-hmm.
big cities. And most of the places that we've been playing in the southeast have been these smaller amphitheaters, which I mean, I saw Joan Jett 3 years ago in one of the same places we're playing, and they're great because they're intimate. They hold between 2,500 and 10,000, as opposed to these bigger ones like the ones in Atlanta. There's two big amphitheaters, they're 14,000 and 20,000. It's like they're way too big for a band of our level. So it's really cool to have these smaller places, but still have the ambiance of a big outdoor concert
Sure.
event. So we've got a lot of those, and then we're still playing club dates, and we're still kind of beta testing this band. We're
Yeah.
still, every couple of weeks we're adding new songs, figuring out what's working. It's fun for us. I mean, as big fans of the 80s, like it's an incredible process to be able to go through songs, looking at the Billboard charts, what songs are massive, what songs were getting huge spins on MTV, and then we check Spotify numbers. What songs are people still listening to
That's
this
awesome.
day on, from the 80s? It's like this, I don't know, for, I always just want to be inspired. I mean, that was the best thing about my introduction into the music business. I don't think I ever would have, quote unquote, made it if I hadn't met the guys in Stuck Mojo and been inspired by this big movement in the late 80s, where you had bands like the Chili Peppers and Faith No More and Orange 9 mm and all these kind of crossover bands. You could really feel that the hair metal thing was starting to wind down, and there was a new energy coming from this underground of aggressive bands that were crossbreeding with other styles and funk and hip
Hmm.
hop and reggae. And I really loved the idea, the excitement of being part of a wave of new things. And then towards the when that band started winding down in the late 90s, I met Chris Jericho and we formed Fozzy, and we immediately got signed to Megaforce Records. Michael Olago, who signed Metallica, was our A&R guy. And then there was this massive enthusiasm and excitement with that band. And it gave me something to focus my creative energies towards. And that's the only thing that's kind of propelled me forward in this business is just my passion and love for music. It's pretty cool that in my 50s, I've had a third shot at this. Um, and Stuck Mojo's not a dead band. I mean, we do reunions every once in a while,
Yeah.
and Fozzy's still a very active band. We just put a new single out, Army of One, that's just entered the charts. Like, that's a very active band. But anyone who knows Fozzy knows that our lead singer, Chris Jericho, has 20 jobs. He's one of the most famous people on the planet. And we tour when we can. You know, we do 75 shows a year. We tour Australia and the States and the UK and occasionally go over to mainland Europe. Um, and that band's very busy. Um, and I'm not trying to fill my time with other things because I could easily stay home and just write songs or whatever. This really is a passion project for me. Um, and the five people that I'm standing on stage, or the other four people I stand on stage with, are my brothers and sisters, just like my brothers are in Fozzy. And we um we have kind of a mission statement, which is that we don't do shows, we do group therapy classes. um, Life is tough. Like, open up Twitter and just in 5 minutes, it's like you wonder where have we gone wrong? Things are just rough. Things are expensive, times are tough, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of things to deal with. And the Guardians of the Jukebox is just a respite. It's just a night out for singing and dancing and reminiscing and nostalgia. And the coolest thing is we're drawing a young audience too, which I would have thought that we would have played mainly for people who grew up with these songs. But it turns out that holding out for a hero is in video games and Pixar movies. And you're starting to discover that so many of these people who are under the age of 25 already know Toto's Africa and Rosanna, and already know Don't Stop Believing and Jukebox Hero. They're on they're on the video games, and they're on TV commercials that they
Yep.
have absorbed as a kid. So these are timeless songs, and we're the right stewards to play them. Again, we've got members of the band from every decade, and me at the captain's helm. I went to my '87 senior prom. I know what Drakkar and Obsession smells like. I know what an IROC Z looks like with the T-tops out. Like, I was there. I'm the perfect guy to lead this movement, and I'm really proud of this band, and I'm excited for people to see it for the first time.
I'm going to get out and see it. I have to. You talk about Chris Jericho, who, by the way, was at the Rolling Stones show the other day, looking very much like Chris Holmes from Wasp. I don't know if that's what he's going for, but he was definitely channeling his inner Chris Holmes these days with the beard. He's got the hair. It's perfect. Maybe he's to start a Wasp cover band. He does Quarantine, which I am going to see July 6th in Ohio. This
Ah,
80s
they're
Kiss
killer. They're
cover band.
so
I'm
good.
going to see it. I
It's
can't
so
wait.
good.
I'm such a fan of that era. In fact, so much so that I went down to Vegas a couple years ago on New Year's Eve to see Bruce Kulick, Zach Throne, and there's actually Eric Singer playing drums that night. He wasn't supposed to, but he did.
Wow.
And yeah, to see that, because they play, they do all this stuff. They do all the 80s, the Kiss cruises and stuff, all the 80s. I am such an unabashed fan of 80s non-makeup Kiss that I can't even see straight. So to see Quarantine do it, to see all those songs, they just released a single, Good Girl Gone Bad, and all the 80s songs that you never get to see Kiss play since they did their reunion tour in 96. You get to see them all.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
all the players in Quarantine are stone cold killers. I mean, Chris has really put together an amazing band, and I love that era like you do. I saw the
Yeah.
Lick It Up and the Animalized tours when I was a kid.
Oh,
I mean, I was a big. I didn't get into Kiss during the makeup era because my parents were listening to disco and stuff, and I was, the records that I was getting was the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack and the Grease soundtrack because
And
I was
ABBA.
10 years old. Yeah, I know that's right because I was 10 years old in that. Well, I mean, I was born in 1969, so like the peak of Kiss, I would have been 7 or 8. I didn't have an older brother or sister that could introduce me to cool music. So I was finding stuff that was just on the radio, whatever was popular. It wasn't
Yeah.
until I got into like junior high school and high school that you met other people that knew about hard rock bands and you discovered Motley Crue and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Ozzy and Scorpions and all my favorite heavy metal bands. So I discovered Kiss. It makeup was gone,
Yeah.
um, and so for me, that's why I love Quarantine is because they're playing my jams from my era. And not the same with Chris. I mean, Chris is a couple years younger than me, and he grew up with those jams. And PJ Farley, who's the bass player from Fozzy, his band
Yep.
Trickster in the early
Yeah.
'90s opened for Kiss. So
Yeah, that's right.
like they're the most qualified to do that stuff, and they've got two shredding guitar players, and their drummer Kent plays for Luke Bryant, the big country artist who plays stadiums. I mean, they're all killers, and they love that music. It's not what I think is great about Quarantine and Guardians of the Jukebox is that we have day jobs that are we're also passionate about, but they pay our bills. We don't have to we don't have to pimp ourselves with these pure emotional connections with Quarantine and Guardians of the Jukebox. We do it right. Um, we're not going to, in other words, we're not going to sell ourselves short or try to taint um, the legacies that we've built for a couple of bucks. This is a pure labor of love. Um, and for me, with the Guardians, I've always said this to everybody. I'm never going to go to Base Camp 1 and boil water with the Sherpas. I'm going to the summit. My goal with the Guardians is to be as big as or bigger than some of these bands that are currently touring with these things. I mean, I don't want to do it if not. I'm not putting on the pads unless I'm going to the Super Bowl. I want to be successful at everything I do, not because I want to be famous, not because I mean I've got whatever accolades I've already got them. I just want to be the best at whatever I do. Otherwise, don't do it. Like
Yeah.
my wife and I put a garden in the front yard and started building stuff. I wanted it to be better than anybody else's front yard in the neighborhood. It's like that competitive thing. I don't know what it is. It's I think it's something that if you grew up in the era pre-internet where all you had was soccer practice or ice hockey practice or skateboarding and you wanted to do the best tricks and you wanted to show off to your friends, or if you went to BMX you wanted to be the one that came in first. Like, I don't know, there's something great about it, and I love that. And it's not me being the best against everybody else, it's me bettering myself. Like, how can I continue to improve? How can I continue to improve my bands? And I'm lucky that all my bandmates are on team Let's Go.
God, I share that sentiment so much, and when you say that, it's so inspiring. And like, did you have a moment when you were young that you were like, okay, I see what my parents do for a living. I know that, like, God, I love music. I love, other things around me. Like that you said, you know what? Like, I can't, they're a real job and like whatever some of my friends are doing or like going to college and they're like working in an office or a plastics factory, like that's not for me. And there's no way I can do that. Like, did you have a moment that stands out about that?
I mean, I I do have the crazy story, which is that I always knew I was going to do this. Now, I didn't know that I was going to make money at it. I just wanted to be in a band. Like my whole goal was to play music. Like, I had all the quintessential, just like what you have behind you, all the posters. Like, my room was just all the posters, and I had a record player, and I used to just listen to records and try to pick out how to play the songs by ear. Um, and there was never a moment of doubt that I knew. Now, I grew up in a somewhat smaller town in Charlotte, North Carolina. And there weren't bands being signed out of Charlotte. I mean, I would have thought that I would have had a better chance of being an astronaut and going, to Mars or something than like being successful, because that was for people like Ozzy and Joan Jett. That wasn't for Rich Ward. that was elite top level stuff. It's like playing in the NBA. It's like, yeah, you could still be the best basketball player in your school, and you're never going to be in the NBA.
Right.
Like that's the mindset that a lot of parents, especially boomer parents, would tell you. You got to go to college. You got to get a job. You got to sit in a cubicle. You got to do your thing. And I was like, I hear you, but I just want to play guitar. Um, and I just followed that path, and the path went from I left home when I was 16, and I moved into my friend's parents' basement, unfinished basement, lived on an air mattress. I did graduate high school, um, but then I moved into an apartment with a two-bedroom apartment with five guys. And then I met this manager after I was in Stuck Mojo and begged him to manage Stuck Mojo. And he said, if you're willing to move into your rehearsal space so you have no bills, you all break up with your girlfriends so that you have no emotional attachments, and you never say no to a show. So I was homeless for 4 years. I lived in a rehearsal space that was a concrete block, cinder block building with no bathroom, no shower, nothing. We used to shower with a hose over a fence. Um, and it, you know, and I'm not saying that for any other reason other than to say it's like the journey was the
Yeah.
thing that reinforced every step of the way. All of these things just reinforced to me how bad I wanted to do this. And we still didn't think we are going to get a record deal. I just wanted to be the best regional band with my brothers in Stuck Mojo, where we came in and just crushed the best local band in every city we would go to, and just the same mentality that all my heroes had. You know, you read in magazines and Cream and Metal Edge and Rip, and you hear these stories about how Motley did it and how Twisted Sister did it and how Iron Maiden did it and Priest, and I wanted to follow in those footsteps. And my story is whatever it takes. Just like Sean Connery in The Untouchables, what are you prepared to do? I always tell people I was never particularly the greatest shredder around. I was never. I had my own style that had a sound. It was a thumbprint, and part of that was I played guitar all the time. Um, I had some specific influences that gave me a particular sound and approach in how I played guitar, and I worked hard, and I surrounded myself with musicians that also were hungry and were willing to do whatever. And I think that's the story of life. It's the story of your podcast being successful. It's the story of Chris Jericho being the most successful wrestler on the planet. It's the story of just life. If you want to be the best basketball player or the best real estate agent, it's just what are you prepared to do? And there are going to be people who are going to sneak through on talent, incredible ability. They were born at 6'8" and
Right.
amazing genetics. They're going to have a step up on you, but there are still going to be 5'9", 155-pound athletes who make it in professional athletics. And that's because they got hustle, and the coach sees them as somebody who wants it hard. And the doors will open for those people. And when they open, you better sprint with all you have through it and never turn around when they scream your name. You're on the wrong team. Just keep going. And that's just been it sucks because the music industry people, you hear it all the time. Oh, it's a terrible business. Spotify and Apple, they don't pay anything, and you
Mhm.
don't get, and it's the record companies are going to screw you, and all of these things are absolutely true. If you're in it for the money and you're in it for all that stuff, you're in the wrong business. You just need to go ahead and get a job and secure those things if you need the money, and then play for fun when you get home at night, jam with
Right.
your friends on the weekend, and get your music therapy that way. But if you want to be in the music industry, there's no crying in this business. It's just
Man.
it is what it is. Jericho and I had um, our first big successful record. Our record company filed bankruptcy on us. It was the first time we were ever going to get a taste of a little bit of money, and they closed the doors on us. And we had financed the album, so we lost a lot of money. And
Mm.
then it's been a tale of that throughout the story of it. But so what? Like you think about all these investors and people who have lost money, or professional athletes who break their leg and never play again. Life is risky, and it's what do you want? What are your goals? If your goal is to be famous, uh, then don't be a musician. Like, because you're just going to be let down because
Right.
your motives won't be right, and if you don't make it, it'll feel like a failure. But if you love music and you don't make it, and you don't make $1 million, and you don't have a Maserati in your driveway, and you don't have all the things that you thought that MTV told you, that MTV Cribs told you you could have, you're still going to be okay about it, because the only thing you wanted to do was play music. So you won. You still got to make your music. You still got to play shows. You still got a W on the board. It's the only people who walk away disappointed is when their expectations were not met. Fame, money, whatever the accolades or whatever that comes with it. And if you could have it all, good for you, man. Good. You won the lottery. But there's not a lot of them out there doing it, you know?
There's so few, and like to know that, I've been a big Fozzy fan since the beginning because I loved the covers, I loved the Scorpions and Wasp, and to hear like my favorite wrestler Chris Jericho, and that's where I heard Rich Ward from Stuck Mojo. They would always say that when they would talk about the rest of the band, and on guitars, Rich Ward from Stuck Mojo. I was like, well, I got to look into this and learn that. And then you guys came out with Happenstance in '02, which still has my favorite Fozzy song to this day, which is To Kill a Stranger. It's still, because I remember you guys performed that on Raw, and like Ric
That's
Flair
right.
like tore up the set and everything. And I was like, I don't know. They're supposed to be heels because we're not supposed to like this music, but I freaking love Fozzy. I love everything it stands for. And you talked about the new single
Thanks.
Army of One, and you got the tour coming up here, 25th anniversary, all around America here. This is going to be tremendous. You guys do the best VIP, by the way, in the business. I mean, look at that.
Thank
That
you.
is like the most affordable VIP package, and they're extremely important for bands to do now. A lot of bands do them, but they're usually not affordable for the average person. And so this tour, man, this is going to be huge. I saw you guys last year opening here in Kansas City for Ugly Kid Joe. How much fun was that? That was badass. And now spring forward to this 25th anniversary tour, Fozzy on top again.
Yeah, I mean, we're really blessed. You know, the Fozzy band started as a side thing for myself and Chris, and it just kind of evolved into this passion project, which then we take as seriously as you would anything else you do in your life. I mean, Chris is not going to do anything unless he feels like it's going to be successful, because he's an apex predator. He's a great white shark. Everything he does is incredible. I mean, the fact that he's at his age and is still at the top in his industry, and he's got 4 New York Times bestsellers and one of the most popular podcasts in the world, and he's one of the greatest frontmen that's ever lived in rock and roll, and I'll stand by that. And for a lot of fans, I know this is kind of, especially for old school rock fans, this is kind of weird thing about VIPs, charging fans to meet the band, and I would feel very odd about that as well. But we actually do a separate concert, so it's kind of a
Right.
mini concert that we cap at a certain level, so that we only have, it's like a small, almost like a house party concert, and we use all of that money. Nobody in the band gets to touch the VIP money. All that money goes into production and the operation of the business. So it
Wow.
doesn't enrich any of us. We set that aside as a way for us to buy new lights and to upgrade equipment and stuff. So we reinvest in the live experience that we give to the fans. And from the very beginning, we felt like that was important for us to do, is to figure out a way for us to reinvest in things that we need, and also at the same time, it's really cool for us, is because um, we get to meet people, and it's not just a grip and grin where hey, nice to see you, and it's a line. We actually get to play songs in front of 20 people every day at sound check, and have conversations and hang out, and I think those are really cool. I've actually wanted to do a few other bands, because no matter how old I get, I'm still a fan at heart. I still, I still listen to music. I'm consuming new music. I mean, I'm obsessed with this Ronnie Radke guy, Falling in Reverse,
Ah,
because I think he's like a true rock star. I love the fact that he's just everything that Ozzy Osbourne and Lemmy used to be, which is that was unfiltered and just um, you were just waiting for the next thing they were going to say, um, and just unafraid, fully realized, knows who he is. Um, is not going to apologize for who they are. And Ozzy was my guy. Like I
Yeah.
loved Ozzy. I had so many Ozzy posters on my wall, and I love Blackie Lawless too. It's like same thing, non-apologetic, knew who he was. Same with The Rock, same with Ric Flair. It doesn't, Stone Cold Steve Austin, all the greats, doesn't matter what genre it was. Sean Penn, like Tom Cruise, flawed individuals, slightly touched, because you're never going to be a genius artist without being a little bit special.
Right.
You show me somebody with a two-parent household that had an incredible upbringing, perfect life, and I'll show you somebody who could be an amazing musician, but they're not going to be an Axl Rose, because something had to be a little off in Axl Rose's childhood in order to carve him and mold him into this fractured, broken artist that is able to tell stories and convey emotions in this way. Kurt Cobain and Chester Bennington, all of these people who just tortured individuals, but they make incredible artists. And we don't want people to be tortured and fractured and broken. I want to see healthy people. But at least we know that when society churns out broken people, they're going to create incredible art for the rest of us and bestow beauty upon us. I mean, look at the all-time greats, Michael Jackson and Prince. I the fact that Tom Petty and Prince were taking heroin and you know what I mean, like I can't fentanyl. Excuse me, I should have said that. I don't even know how that you would never think in a million years, and you would never think that that Chester Bennington would take his own life. These are like the pillars of our community. These are the people who we think they have it all. I mean,
Yeah.
they do have it all, except for we don't know, except for what they don't tell us that we don't know. And um, and everybody that I know that I've toured with, from the greatest bands in the world. Stuck Mojo was the opening band in 1998 for Pantera. We opened for Typo Negative. Uh, Fozzy has toured with very big. We've opened for Slayer. We've opened for Motorhead. These are all these are all messed up people, just like me, just like Chris. We're doing the
God
best
bless
that we
you.
can. Yeah, and and the what you have to do is just say I'm not going to let it take me. And it's hard because you say, well, how did it take Chris Cornell? How did it get so dark that it goes to that place? And I think the answer is just love on each other, and realize when it's getting bad to cut all of the stuff that makes you feel like you're in that dark bubble. And for me, it's another reason why the Guardians of the Jukebox is like works for me. When I play All Night Long by Lionel Richie and Like a Prayer by Madonna and Don't Stop Believing, it's just as much therapy for me as it is for the people who come to see us
Sure.
play. Happy songs. I mean, I remember when I saw the Scorpions, and I know that Scorpions are a heavy metal band, but they were on the side of the kind of happy stuff. Their
Yeah,
music was
they
much
are.
more kind of uplifting. It had a good vibe about them. And when you saw them in interviews, they always had that really friendly, cool. There was not an apparent dark side to the Scorpions.
Right.
And I remember when I was at the concert in '84, just thinking this was the greatest concert I'd ever seen. Like they were running around like crazy, like Olympic athletes, and singing and playing at an ability that was beyond a lot of bands of their generation. And they were doing it with joy and love in their hearts, but with aggressiveness in the way that they played and their attitude. And I've never forgotten that about how you can grip a guitar with an aggressiveness and hit it like Pete Townsend does and make it speak without having to dip into some kind of darkness. And I think
Mm.
that's where I am in my life, is to find those places where those great artists like Steve Lukather and even guys like John Sykes. I mean, you listen to John
Oh,
Sykes' playing, it's like
yeah.
so aggressive. And yet there's, he wrote Still of the Night and Here I Go Again, some of the greatest rock anthems of the 80s. And thank God for music, Thank God for Chris Farley making movies for us to laugh. I need Pantera, I need Slayer, but I need them on the balance sheets. I think that's the beauty of life is that I can watch the new Halloween movies, but still see uh, David Spade and Chris Farley, and go watch Uncle Buck to remind me that life can be funny and beautiful too.
Harnessing all those influences and being able to take in all those things around you. I'm the exact same way, whether it be the movies I grew up watching, the music. I remember seeing my uncle's one of my first memories is seeing my uncle's Kiss Destroyer record in my grandparents' basement. My grandma is 88 and still alive and remembers this. And I held it in my hand and I was like, I don't know what this is, but like I want this in my life for the rest of it. And
Yeah,
I'm a that's I it seems like we're very similar in that we just absorb things that make us happy, things that are nostalgic for us, things that we continue to evolve with. And yet it all kind of goes back to the things that laid the groundwork. And I love that about what you do, your attitude. It shows on stage. You're one of my favorite guitarists live just to watch
thank
visually.
you,
And
thank you.
that really shows out. And it just makes you think like, man, like you can be happy doing what you do. You can love what you do and you can just keep your eye on that prize. That stands out for you, Rich. And I can't thank you enough, man, for the time and all the time. I kept you for way longer than I had anticipated. And you're
No,
just
man,
that fun, man.
it's been an honor, and I love talking about this stuff because if it helps one person, you and I having these conversations, I I mean, our job is not to reach out and help people, but we can tell
We
our
will if we
stories, and
need
if
to.
people, yeah, that's exactly right. And the truth is that I'm sure for you a bit holding that Destroyer album cover. For me, I didn't have a bunch of friends. I didn't have, like I said, an older brother or sister.
Right.
My parents were both working. I was a free range chicken growing up. I didn't have. I was my life was music, listening to albums and discovering things, and that was my world. I mean, I was the quintessential nerd. I played Dungeons and Dragons. I was in Boy Scouts. I listened to heavy metal music, and my life was saved by feeling like I was connected with something that was bigger than me. And the hard rock community was that thing. And when you went to concerts and you saw 10,000 other people that were just like us,
Yeah.
it's like all here celebrating life to these incredible songs that meant something to us. It's like a secular praise and worship moment for all of us. And I think music is more important than we think it is. And I don't say that as somebody that says that my fans need to think my music is important. I mean, music is important to
In
me,
general. Yeah.
me listening to people. I mean, I'm sitting right there as my turntable when I was listening to Can't Slow Down by Lionel Richie on vinyl just a couple of nights ago here, just to hear the crackle of the record when it hits. And um, you know, still feeling like that 13-year-old kid who didn't have a care in the world and had my entire life in front of me. I just want to embrace that feeling of youth and that forever young spirit. And I think our community, your community, my community, is important that we keep this stuff for people who need it.
That's the world that I like to live in. That's why I love interviewing people like yourself. We got PJ coming on soon, so we're gonna keep this thing rolling. Eventually, making its way around. At some point, Chris Jericho will be on. We've had Chris Jericho's son on. Ash Irvin has been on this show, and not yet Chris Jericho. It's gonna
Nice.
happen. It's gonna happen. I gotta get him in his Chris Holmes era. It's gotta happen. Rich, can't thank you enough, man.
Tell,
Guardians of the
yeah, thank you.
Jukebox.com.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can get all the dates there, and you can check out the single for Flashdance, What a Feeling. And hopefully, man, I'm going to do my damnedest to get out there and see the Guardians this summer and on into the stratosphere, man. It's been a true pleasure, and it's been so much fun just kind of going into we kind of live in the same universe. So I'm glad we got to delve into it today, man. It's been great.
No, it was my honor. Let's do it again soon. Next
Yep.
time, let's talk wrestling and we'll talk
Yes.
about video games and talk about Iron Maiden, and we'll do some deep diving on some of our favorite topics.
Oh, I got 2 more hours. We can go. Let's go. WrestleMania 6. No, we'll do it, man. Those are all my things. That's the world I live in every day. So you hit it right on the head. Thank you, Rich. We'll catch up again soon, my
Thanks,
friend.
brother. Sounds
Thank
great, man.
you.
Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. God bless,
You
buddy.
bet.
See you, Clint.